Hello, this is Duncan Fitter of the Oracle Analytics Product Management Group. I'm your host for today. Welcome to the upgrading from OBIEE to OAS, the benefits and path to modernizing your analytics. We'll be doing a short Q&A session towards the end of the presentation today, so please submit your questions via the Q&A functionality at the bottom of the screen versus the chat. I'm very pleased to have two Oracle aces with us today, Christian and Gianni, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over now to them and let them introduce themselves. So guys, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Duncan. Let's reactivate ourselves. Gianni, you're still mute, by the way. Yeah, that's better. Welcome, everybody. I'm just gonna jump right in. Just quickly, if this lets me change the slide. It worked like 2 minutes ago. All right, okay. So my name is Christian Berg. I'm an Oracle ACE Director for Analytics. I'm doing analytics since quite a while in this product area. I'm speaking all over the globe on user conferences. Sometimes I blog. You can find all my engagements here. Very new stuff that we've been doing together with Gianni is we started the ACES at Home webinar series. And obviously, we're frequent advisors to Oracle product management on anything analytics. So with this out of the way, Gianni, may present yourself, please.
So for me, I'm Gianni Ceresa, working for Datalysis in Switzerland. It's more than 10 years that I play around with data in general, BI, EPM, and just data. Also an Oracle ACE Director. When I remember, and I have something to say, I also blog a few times per year. You find it on my website. Spending way too much time supporting the community, either on the forums, or I'm also active in few user groups all around the planet, US and Europe. As Christian said, ACES at Home was a great adventure and we keep it going. And I also spend way too much time speaking with product management about new features, not working features, and so on.
Thank you, Gianni. So just quickly, since Duncan mentioned it, we both mentioned it. The ACE program. So we said we're ACE directors, we're part of the ACE program. The ACE program, for everybody who doesn't know this yet, is a community inside of the Oracle professionals. It's managed by Oracle, but it's only people outside of Oracle that are in this program. And we are basically recognized experts in our areas. And most importantly, we are very active in the community. So this has got nothing to do with a certification or so, but this is who actually pushes the technology out there, who presents the conferences, writes the books, etc., etc. If you're interested a bit more in detail in what we do, the links are all there. If you think someone should be an ACE because he or she deserves it, please nominate them. We're always looking for new people to expand our group and have more pervasion in the community. Now, with that out of the way, let's jump right into the topic. And before we even start talking about technicalities, just a reminder, the question, not just with Oracle Analytics, but in general with Oracle products, is never should we upgrade or when should we upgrade? The question is rather, why should you waste money and stuck with outdated technology? Because quite simply, upgrades are free. You pay for them in your license fees. So anybody sticking around on old versions, like in the case of OBIEE, an 11G version or a very early OBIEE 12C release, that doesn't actually bring you any benefit. It just makes you miss what's happening on the market in terms of technology and advancement. So yes, you do obviously have to invest some effort into it, but you don't pay anything. Don't stick around on old stuff. Now, we can jump in. Slides don't change again. Right, okay. Now I'm going to give a little context because some of you may have jumped on the Oracle Analytics or Oracle BI product line very recently, like in the 12C family. Some may have come in over the 11G family, and some might be even older than that in terms of product usage. So I'll give you a nice little overview, first of all, where this all comes from, what we're talking about today. So, as Gianni would always say, like Christian, this whole stuff is older than you think. And it actually started out, and no, this is no joke, in 1997 with the first release of the so-called NQuire server. NQuire was a company who had decided to build something like Google, but for structured data sources like databases, cubes, etc., etc. And they had come up with this whole idea of the metadata in the repository, so of this curated metadata model. Now, they created the core BI server, the core presentation server. They created the admin tool that we still have and love, catalog manager, etc., etc. So the things that we still use and the things that Oracle uses in the background to do a lot of the upgrade tasks, that's around since more than 20 years now. Right, forward to 2001, Siebel Systems bought NQuire and created Siebel Analytics. So what did they do? They added stuff like catalog groups, but most importantly, the market integration. That's actually why they bought NQuire. They didn't buy NQuire to have an analytics platform. They bought NQuire to have a marketing segmentation server. Then later on, they added the action framework, so you can interact with other applications, source extensions, etc., etc. Then 2006, the contracts were signed. Oracle bought Siebel. There was a hybrid release in between 7 from Siebel and 10 from Oracle. And then as of 10G, it was all Oracle releases until, well, we reached today. And Oracle added a lot of things. So first of all, they baked into the whole thing BI Publisher, web services, the MBeans, the whole WebLogic backend they added to it. Obviously, when they bought Hyperion in 2008, they added Essbase, then OSSM, which doesn't exist anymore. But then now, at the bottom of the list, you will see everything that's new today. So data visualization, data flows, data engineering, external data sets for data mashup, etc., etc. So Oracle has been owner of this product for the longest time in this history, has added the most things, and is now moving to basically Oracle Analytics, which is OAC, Oracle Analytics Cloud, and OAS, which we're going to be talking about in detail today. Now, as we have seen, there was a little jump between 12C and OAS. So OAC is the cloud-specific version of the old OBIEE and has now become the general standard, and also in terms of code base, the standard for Oracle Analytics. OAC has some cloud-only features, or had, and we're now in a phase that this gets aligned. So whatever is done in cloud trickles down to on-premises. We have yearly releases where these features get pushed from cloud to on-premises. Cloud gets several releases per year. At the moment, we're waiting for 5.7. So this means that in 2020, we will have had already 3, coming up on 4 releases of OAC. OAS, with the 1-yearly release at the moment, is on 5.5. And will get lifted to OAS, however they will call it, 5 point something or 6 point something next year. Note, sometimes you may find OAS referenced on support web or My Oracle support as 12.2.15 or even 12.2.25, which is the internal versioning, and don't be confused. This is just support stuff. Keep just in mind Oracle Analytics Cloud and Oracle Analytics Server. That's the new standard denominations for all these products. Now, if we look a bit more in general, this was more how did the product grow in terms of versions and companies. If we look at more in general in functionality, how did analytics evolve over time? So we started with a very centralized view of data with a lot of governance. Then we moved into self-service. And then obviously with the whole machine learning and artificial intelligence being around since years now, we're going into more data-driven businesses by augmented analytics. Basically, the tools take away a lot of the things that you had to do manually and do them for you. But obviously, we don't want this to be separated. We don't want to have one system for centralized reporting where somebody writes an SQL report. We don't have to have a second tool where somebody goes in and then clicks around in some desktop visualization tool for self-service, and then that's not integrated into anything else. And then the third person goes, takes Python, and does some cool machine learning. I mean, yes, you can do it like this, but why would you? The machine learning guy needs the centralized governed data just as the self-service user does. And also whatever the self-service user brings in terms of the Excel sheets he gets, the list he gets sent by an external provider that he or she meshes up with the data, well, they should not just be meshed up on the desktop of that person. They should be meshed up with your corporate information. Everybody should be able to enrich it if they have the right, etc., etc. So this integration should cover all the needs of everybody in all the different areas. It should be unified, it should be integrated, and it should be coherent and consistent information. And our Oracle Analytics is the platform that actually does this. There are tools for every single bit in that food chain out there, and you all know who I'm talking about. But they are bits and pieces. Some do governed, some do self-service, some do augmented. But Oracle Analytics brings us all into one single product, one place, one system, period. And obviously, with this, we're going to get into this more in detail when Gianni is going about about the features in a moment. But we're talking about proactive and actionable analytics. So from dashboards to integration into your business processes, we want self-service. We don't want just have to IT sitting there and producing things for others. And then obviously we want to have data discovery. We want to have augmented analytics. We want to have some more guided exploration that actually leads you through the data. Listen, this could be interesting, etc., etc. And for that, just to recap what we have at the moment 3 different products. Oracle Analytics Cloud, which is the main cloud-based code source for the analytics product suite, gets the most updates, several per year, which then trickle into middle of the screen Oracle Analytics Server once per year, where this gets aligned. And then on the right-hand side, for all the people listening here who have things like Oracle eBusiness, Siebel CRM, JD Edwards, PeopleSoft, all the cloud customer experience products, it's the Fusion Autonomous Data Warehouse, or Fusion Autonomous Warehouse, which is basically what was known as Oracle BI applications before. So still pre-built data transfer routines from your systems into a warehouse, and then Oracle Analytics on top of it. All right, so with this, I hand over to Gianni, who will go more into the OAS features. Gianni?
Yes. So first of all, what about the release that you get now? As Christian said, it's 5.5. It has been released end of January. The last day, it was like 8 o'clock European time in the evening. So they really kept the deadline for hours. And with it, you get a lot of new features. It's more than 160 new features that you get compared to your OBIEE 12c, for example. You get all the nice, shining, and the fancy machine learning things, natural language processing things, and all the data preparation, data gateway. So you get a lot that was for a few years cloud only. OBIEE 12c was really behind for quite a few years, and Oracle NX Server really covered a gap that was quite long. Now, this is Linux only so far. What about Windows? There is a OAS 5.5 for Windows. Maybe this month, maybe. Plans can change, so wait and see. It will come with the same functionality as the Linux one because it's the same product in the end. The only addition is really the SQL Server that can be used for the RCU schemas. Because you are on Windows, they imagine you probably have SQL Server. Now let's get into a few more details about these 160 new features. Don't worry, I'm not going through every single one of them. It's really a global highlight of what's new. The main new features is really data visualization. In 12c, you already had Visual Analyzer. It was there. It was like really the first version of it. It was a way to say, hey, we do have some self-service things, but data visualization really give you a total different experience. It changed the way that you use the tool. As an end user, you are not doing reporting anymore. You're not really looking at tables and pivot and just trying to find one number in the middle of many others. You really go more into, let's me tell you a story. I take my data and I tell you the story of it. So using a lot of visualization. Data visualization really focus more on visualization, charts, and tables and pivot. It really try to highlight the important numbers. It really show you more than the number. It show you what happened around the numbers, using all these charts that are more modern and I would say aligned with concurrent tools for most of them. This is now a quick video. I hope your Zoom bandwidth will show something. If not, the recording will get it. In data visualization, you just pick some columns. The tool by default will create some charts based on it. It's smart enough to guess what to do. And then you can just click around. Okay, the video is a bit fast in reality, but not so much. You can really just click around and start connecting the dots. You create a map, you add a filter on it for showing only US, and then next to it, you just create another chart, and you keep going one by one. But it would be nice if when you click on the map, you see the other charts changing. In OBIEE, it's there. Master detail works, but it's a lot more complicated and less dynamic. Here, it's all really about dynamic. You really work with your data visualization project. You really work with your screen. You really play around. You analyze things by clicking around. So you click on the map and you see that everything else changes in the map. You start filtering things on the fly without going to a prompt, without going somewhere else on the page to set some filters. It's really all interactive and dynamic. It's the modern way of doing analytics. So something else that you can do, and it's really something interesting. It is, for example, when you have something new. So my bad, I did the wrong click, obviously. So you have a new set of data in front of you, and you say, oh, I don't know this information. I have a data set, but I have no idea what is behind. How am I supposed to know what kind of information I have in front of me? Right click on every single column, right click, explain, and Oracle NX Server, and again, my bad click, sorry. So you do one click, explain, and what you get is the tool tell you about the information. Tell you, oh yes, this is a yes and no column. This is a split by yes and no. This is how it's split across the measures. These are the strong correlated values. So if you have this attribute, it's strongly correlated with your yes and no columns. And then you can also just select the element of this pre-built analysis. You also have like machine learning pieces saying, oh, these elements influence your value. So if, for example, first name equal Tom and country is equal US, the column is probably yes. So you keep going, you keep exploring your data. This is Oracle NX Server building all those things for you. But when you find a nice piece of chart, you find a nice chart, you just select it, and at the end you say, hey, this tool gave me a lot of information about it. I want to build a page on it. So you just click through the automatically generated charts, you select them, you add them to your page, there it is. You are now explaining this attribute column. You are showing how it is split yes and no and how it correlates to other things. You also have anomalies detection. If your column follow a kind of a pattern, and then all of a sudden it's out of these patterns, the tool will say, yep, here there are something that is, let's say, could be outliers. So it's all automated. This is really the augmented side where the tool is smart enough to explain you things. It's not you having to learn your data and tell the tool what to do with it. It's the tool that actually explains you the data in a way. About charts, you have a bunch more charts than OBIEE, the classic one. So you see, this is a short list of them. It keeps changing, at least on the cloud. On our premises, it will change once per year. What if you don't have what you look for? Why to worry about? You can write it. You can write a custom plugin for a new visualization, or you can go online and pick it somewhere. For example, you have the Oracle Analytics library. If you go to this link, you find examples, tutorials, and you find a list, the library of plugins that exist for Oracle Analytics server, cloud, and desktop. You can freely download content and use it. It's really free. And if you develop a nice plugin and you want to just make it available to others, you just go there, you can upload it, and you can ask Oracle if they agree to publish it. Just 3 examples. On the left side, we have one done by Oracle. On the right side is done by a consulting company. The central one is done by independent people. It's just 2 guys, Gary and I don't remember the name of Miss Flores. So they just say, oh, I need this plugin. Let's write it. They make it available for the community. Everybody can download it and use it. What else do you have? You can speak to your data, or actually you can ask Oracle Analytics Server to answer you by using the information it has. Oracle Analytics Server can use all the metadata about your columns, your data, your data sets, your content you created, all the analysis, all the projects you do. And then it can generate visualization. It can generate something that matches your request. Another little video that will show this one. It has been done on the cloud, but it works one-to-one in Oracle Analytics Server. It's exactly the same thing. You have a bar there in the middle of the screen, and you can just click on it, and you say, hey, Oracle Analytics Server, can you please give me my revenue by product, by type, per month, and also give me the number of customers, please. Click, and the tool is in the server, Oracle Analytics Server is going to look into all the metadata, say, oh, I found the revenue, I found the number of customers, I found product type, I found month, and there it is. It generates for you on demand, so you just type a sentence and it generates you the visualization matching this request. So this one can sound like, oh, that's just a nice to have things. But when you are just looking for a quick information, being able to simply say, hey, give me the revenue by product type, instead of creating new analysis, pick the right subject area, pick the columns, do this, do that, do that. It's extremely faster, extremely easier, and sometimes it gives you idea. Say, oh, I didn't know that this information was like that, and from there you start analyzing more. Data visualization also comes with a bunch more sources. This is all the sources you find in Oracle Analytics server right now. It's not just Excel, it's not just your database. You can really have any kind of databases. There inside you find SQL Server, MySQL, PostgreSQL, DB2. But you can also go to things that are more unexpected, like Google Drive or Google Analytics. So you can directly connect to some sources that have information that you want to do analysis on top, and then you can start mashing up, blending, and mixing it with existing content to generate a new data set that has all the information you look for. Obviously, Excel is still there, so you can just upload an Excel file and use it as a source. This is one of the most asked features of the tool, every single tool. Oh, I want to do things with my Excel. Yes, you can do it. One click away, upload the Excel file, prepare it, and do your analysis, at least in the tool. Stop downloading data to your Excel, load your Excel into the tool, and complement it with information coming from the system. So all these data sets, all these sources generate data sets. All the data sets can be manipulated. There is a bunch of smartness that has been added by the tool. It's not up to you to write every single rule by hand. The tool will analyze your information and suggest possible transformation that you're interested in. You can apply a bunch of rules, and you can also create your own rules. Another quick video showing you an example. So we just load an Excel file. It's super simple. We just take everything as it is. We don't do anything. Then we go, hey, let's work on my data. Let's prepare it. So we click on the Prepare tab. And here you see on the right side, the tool is suggesting changes. For example, social security number, that is sensitive. Let's obfuscate it. One click, you're obfuscating the social security number. Zip code, it's nice. If I can get, for example, country name, city name, would be nicer for my analysis. So it's one click away from a zip code. The tool can retrieve the geographical information and just give you these columns. From the first name, you can say, yeah, I would like to get the gender. The tool can guess based on the first name if it's a male or a female. It's a guess. Don't take it as a reality. It's a guess, but still it's there. Or a simple thing like a full name, first name concatenated with last name. It's one click away. So we just transformed a full data set without entering a single piece of code. Not a single formula, nothing to code, just click through the things, because the data visualization, when you prepare a data set, already has a lot of suggestions. Really, the list of suggestions is quite long. Depending on your data, just adapt. For example, when you have a date, if you want to export the day of the week, if you want to know the date, the day name, all those clicks, it's one click away, not more than that. And when we talk about data sets, it's nice. But what when you still need to ask your IT guys to develop some ETL processes because you need a transformation. You need to join few sources, you need to transform them, you need to aggregate them. Well, guess what? Data visualization comes with data flows. Data flows is a lightweight ETL. It will never replace your enterprise ETL, let's be realistic. But for an end user, it's just a bunch of clicks away from it, because they can say, oh, I have my Excel file as a data source. I want to complement it with something else, and then I want to aggregate, I want to do other operations. It's just clicking through steps. You can add columns, remove columns, create a subset, aggregate, making a lookup to something else. It's all there, one click away. And the nice part is all the machine learning things are also one click away. You can easily, in just 2 clicks, train a machine learning model. Prediction, classifiers, or clustering, doesn't matter. They are all there. There is really a long list of default models that you can use. You have a lot of attributes if you want to change, but even just next, you get a machine learning model. Then you can just apply it. And you can also do, like, for example, forecast. It's often a complicated thing. Oh, I need to forecast my information, but I don't know the formulas. I need to use something smart. Nope. Just say, please do a time series forecast. Look at the back, look at the past, and then forecast the future based on few attributes. It's just one click away. So for the functionalities, as Christian said, there is this classical approach and the modern one. Oracle Analytics Server still gives you all the classical things. It adds on top all the modern things, more in detail. What you are used to do in 12c, so the user experience, it's just the same. If you are able to use our OBIEE 12c or even 11g, Oracle Analytics Server is nothing new. Same place to click, it just change few little small details. Your users will maybe not even see that you changed the tool. So for the classical content, it's just the same thing. But on top of it, you have the full data visualization part, all this data discovery and data science element that was not there at all. You can prepare your data, you can mix it up with enterprise sources, users provided sources, you can visualize it, and it opens the doors to machine learning by just allowing users to just start doing advanced tasks that were not at all possible before. Mobile. Obviously, it also works with mobiles. So there are a bunch of applications, I'm not really going into details, but just to be aware, data visualization projects use modern web technologies, HTML5, all these things, they work on mobile. So you don't have to worry about, oh, it's not going to work on the tablet of the CEO or whatever. It will just work. And Christian was talking about this unified code base with Oracle Analytics Cloud, Oracle Analytics Server. There is also the Oracle Analytics Desktop, so desktop version of the tool, they really made things, because they use the same code base, easy to share. Like myself on my desktop or using Oracle Analytics Desktop, I can create a data visualization project. I load my connection data to the database. I create a nice visualization and say, hey, I would like to get this thing to the server. One click, export, go on the Oracle Analytics server, import. I enter the password that I set at the export step, and there it is. I just deployed, or I just shared with a colleague, or I just shared with somebody else content. You don't need to wait on your IT team to do a migration or whatever. You can easily move data visualization content around. So just to summarize quickly what you get with Oracle Analytics Server, as Christian said, it's functional-wise, it's in parity with Oracle Analytics Cloud. Not fully, almost. There are still small details which are cloud only, but it's really just not even 1%, I will say, of the tool that is cloud only. Once per year, they really will match cloud and on-premises with Oracle Analytics Server upgraded. There you go. Because of that, because it's the same code base, it's the same tool, and they also look the same a lot, you can easily move to the cloud whenever you want, if you want. You don't have to, but if you want to go to the cloud, from Oracle Analytics Server to the cloud is really just one click away, because your users will already be used to how the tool looks like, how the tool works with all the features that you get. And the nice thing is your existing license. OBIEE licenses are Oracle Analytics Server licenses. Actually, if you check your invoice at some point from February till now or the future, you maybe will discover that they already renamed it for you. You are not renewing your license for OBIEE, you are just paying for Oracle Analytics Server. The license is changed for free. You don't have to pay anything else. But that's not all. There is more coming with it. DV, data visualization, was an extra licensing in OBIEE 12c. When you use Oracle Analytics Server, data visualization, with all the things, data flows, data sets, models, machine learning, all those things, it's included, it's free. You don't need to pay these extra things anymore. If you are an Oracle Analytics Server user, you have the classic and you have the modern analytics interface. You can use it for free. On top of it, you also get for free the Oracle Analytics Desktop. So you can get on your own laptop or your own work PC, the Oracle Analytics Desktop, which allow you to this easily moving content around. So if you don't want to load too much, let's say, testing on the server, you can say, yeah, first I use my own desktop as a sandbox, and then I go back to the server. There is just a fair warning. Because it's a new tool, because it's a code base that is in sync with the cloud, there are some changes on functionalities, so there is a deprecation list. It's not a strong warning, it's a fair warning because it just deprecated elements. They are still there, you can still use them, but it means that they will not evolve anymore in functionalities, and Oracle is thinking of replacing them with something else. So in a way, it's a list that you have just to keep in mind, saying, oh, the deprecation list, it's a keep an eye on it list, because in new versions, maybe there is something else that came replacing this piece. The only element that really went away, it's the Walking Dead OSSM. Oracle Scorecard and Strategy Management was already a dead extension in 12c. It didn't change for a single piece. Now in Oracle Analytics Server, it's gone. It's totally gone. It's not part of the tool anymore. You can actually ask yourself, why would I need Oracle Analytics Server instead of the cloud directly? Because they are so similar. So first of all, if you stay in Oracle Analytics Server, it's because you can keep control. Keeping control of your system also means you are responsible for it. You are in charge to guarantee the service. You cannot blame Oracle if your server is down. You are the guy that are in charge to make it running and up and running and live. But it also means that it can run wherever you want and how you want. It can be in your data center, it can be in your basement. We all have some hardware somewhere around. We can still use it locally. So fully on premises. No need to move it somewhere else. It can also work on your laptop or your desktop computer. For example, for development or sandboxing, you can have a VM, a virtual machine with Oracle Analytics server inside. You're totally independent. You don't need any cloud service for it. But if you want to use cloud power, you can take any cloud computing service. Can be Oracle, can be Amazon, can be Google, can be Microsoft, can be whatever you want. As long as I give you an OS, which is compatible with Oracle Analytics Server, you can then install Oracle Analytics Server and you're ready to go. Obviously, because you're in charge of everything, because you have access at the file system level, you can still customize everything. All the customization options that were there in 12c, they are still there. You can still customize everything as you need. And because they are really in sync, and also like it's an evolution of 12c, you don't need to learn a lot new. Okay, data visualization is probably new, but it doesn't take much to learn because it's a self-service interface, so it's easy to get on it. So all your team, all your resources are already able to use the tool out of the box. It just works like 12c for most of the things. So it really just keeps fitting into your corporate processes. It just replaces your OBIEE. It just change name. So you maybe have to rename the label on your flow charts of processes. That's all you need to do. The only thing you don't get to staying on Oracle Analytics Server instead of cloud is the features. You get them once per year. Cloud, as Christian said, already got like 4 releases this year. Oracle Analytics Server is 1 new features release per year. You get bug fixes, you get security patches many times per year. When there is one, you will get it. But feature-wise, new features, it's once per year. So now, why do you maybe want cloud instead? Well, this is really the point of, I don't want to be in charge of it. I don't want to be the guy that is called, that I receive a phone call during my holidays because the service is down. So I just want it to work. I take the cloud. I don't want to be in charge of buying hardware. I don't want to be in charge of setting up hardware to patching my OS. I just want to be able to connect an interface, click on please give me a new instance. And a few minutes later, I have a new instance I can use directly. I don't want to have IT people involved. I don't want to wait a few months for my IT to accept my request to give me an instance. So that's what cloud can give you. And as said, cloud also just keep releasing functionalities at a quite fast pace. So they just keep coming every once in a while. So every 1 or 2 months, you get a release generally. And here I give it back to Christian.
Right, yes, because people were already asking about this specific thing in the chat. So now we're going to actually migrate to OAS. And the question in the chat was, okay, what's the base version from which we can migrate to OAS? And the answer is, as always, well, it depends. And we're going to look at the 3 stages, basically what's happening before the upgrade, or what you should look at before the upgrade, during, and after. Right, so before you start, and this is really, I can't stress this too much. I've done, in the last 24 months, I've done more than 10 upgrades. Well, actually, that's only 12C family. If I count OAS, I'm about 15 or 16 upgrades at the moment. And I can't stress this too much. When you come from an older version, review. What do you upgrade? Do you really want to take everything, etc., etc.? Cleaning up is a very, very, very important part of an upgrade. Yes, you can just take whatever you had and just make it running in the literally fastest way possible. You can do an upgrade with something that's, well, basically it doesn't run into an error wall. You can do an upgrade in an afternoon. I've done it. The question is, does this make sense? If you clean up, if you tidy, if you do a review before, you will reduce the actual work that has to be done during the upgrade. It will also reduce the workload later on, because you kill stuff that's unnecessary. You reduce maintenance. And as a general rule of thumb, if something wasn't used in the old, believe me, it will not be used in the new. Then also, before you start, look at the list of deprecated and desupported features. We mentioned it once or twice throughout this presentation, but again, experience is what actually teaches you how these things work. And if you're using specific functionality or specific, let's say, workarounds or cheats that you invented in the old systems, most of the time based on old technology, anybody remember Flash, for example? Check this beforehand. One of the big changes inside of the 11G family when coming from 10G was all of a sudden the catalog groups, for example, didn't exist anymore. People who are using this heavily to control their security during the upgrade all of a sudden realized, oh, this doesn't exist anymore. I need to find something else. I need to replace this. And obviously with 12C and OAS, there are similar lists. Check these. They can have a huge impact. And obviously, please, please, please look at the certification system requirements document. I don't know how many questions we get per week just pertaining to that. Oh, it's not running, or it's running into an error, or I've managed to kind of install it, but it doesn't start. Yes, check what is required before and then run it. Right, and now to the question that was asked in the chat. What are the paths to get to OAS? It is relatively straightforward. Note the word relatively, because there are multiple starting points, and it depends. There's no, if you've come to this webinar, for example, thinking, oh, they're going to give me a cookbook and I'm just going to copy, paste, and apply it. No, it depends on what you have. So if we look at the documentation, officially the documentation states you can start at 11.119 and use the migration tool to create a bundle in 11.119 that gets then imported into OAS. From 12C, it's basically a bar file, so a business intelligence application archive that gets created, and then you upload that, or you can also call it snapshot. That's in the new terminology for OAC, for example. You can upload that then to OAC or OAS, again, wherever you want. And then special case in the 12C family is 12.2.1.4, so the latest one in the 12C family. That one you can actually in-place upgrade, meaning you literally just exchange the core binaries of the program and keep everything else you had. That shows you how close related the code bases are and why OAS is sometimes called 12.2.5 at the moment. So, but that's the documentation. Again, there are many more paths than that. And I'm aware that many people out there are still on versions way older than 11.119. So let's cover these for a moment. And I hope nobody in here is still in this case, but I'm still mentioning it for completeness. Yeah, 10G. So if you're on that, you're literally on something that's 13 years old by now. It will be a very laborious process and a lot of manual intervention. You have to literally, in terms of history, it's like jumping from, I don't know, the 1200s to today. If you talk about, you know, development of OBIEE or NQuire at that time compared to world's history. So the general thing that you can do is you go from 10G to 11.119 and then with the bundle to OAS. There's a second path though. It looks like there's one more step, but I'm going to go into more detail on this, why this actually kind of makes a lot more sense. So let's quickly continue before I go into detail on this. 11.117, still people out there in 11.117. And actually the .7, by the way, that stands for everything 11G before 11.119. We just called it 11.117 because we kind of assumed everybody was at least on 11.117, which was a major release inside of the 11G family. And again, you can go to 11.119 and then to OAS. Oops, my mouse is gone. Or, whoops, there was two. Did you just click or did I click? Oh, we have two mice now. Can we go back, please? Doesn't want to go back anymore. Okay, right. Or you can go from 11.1.1.7 to 12.2.1.4 and then to OAS. Now, with the intermediary 11.1.1.9, and that holds true for 11.1.1.7 and 10G now. 11.1.1.9 was a hybrid code base at that time for the so-called BIECS, so the Business Intelligence Cloud Service, which was completely replaced by Oracle Analytics Cloud. And for that reason, you won't have a real 12C step before OAS. And just in terms of cleansing, cleaning, and so on, not all the new restrictions and checks that are in a proper 12C family are implemented in 11.1.1.9 yet. What do I mean with that? Every single version since the inception of NQuire has had checks and validations running internally. Now, obviously, if you start packaging this into a cloud black box, so to speak, those checks will grow. There will be much more checks. Things that kind of sneak through the phishing net in the old versions are now hard errors. They will stop you. It will not run in a 12C or an OS. It just won't. And if you do an intermediary release from 11.1.1.9, or as we see in a moment, go directly from 11.1.1.9, well, you never have this verification. So basically, you create the export bundle and then you import it and then it fails. And you're like, okay, so do I go back to 11.1.1.9 and fix it in my current, let's say, dev or test or whatever system is my source? Or do I try to kind of shoehorn it into OAS and then make it work in OAS? So for me, and actually not just for me, for Gianni as well, for us, here you would spend most of the time in OS trying to get things to run. But for us, it's like OAS is the target. That should be proper. That should be nice. You shouldn't start turning its innards around all the time. That's why an intermediary 12.2.1.4 actually makes a lot more sense for us. Because, well, first of all, 11 to 12 is well known. Done it hundreds of times in the industry. There's tons of support notes for almost every single issue you can find. That's it. And also, all the new restrictions and checks that are in OAC and OAS are applied because you can already today, or you could even last year already, you could take a bar file from a 12.2.1.4 on premises and just move it to the cloud. So it already had to work. So that was done already. You don't have to think about this. You don't have to worry about this. Then it's a more proper basis because it's the same family, it's the same code base. It's OAS is more or less a newly named dot release in that family. And if you know software development processes, then you'll know that, well, it's better to move inside of the family than just jump outside of those boundaries. So this is definitely more recommendable to do an intermediary 12C step rather than having a pure 11.11 OAS or 10.11 OAS. Now, yeah, to sum this up, so 10G 11 pre.9 to OAS, there are multiple steps necessary. You won't be able to do it in one step. Sorry to everybody who thought this is a one-step process. No, it's not. They're completely out of place upgrades. You need multiple environments. Depending on what you had and how proper and clean your configuration was in 10G or 11G, and that one also holds true for 11.1.1.9. Since it led through a lot of improper RPD configuration, for example, you can have a lot of efforts cleaning that. Because all of a sudden you have hard errors where you didn't even have a warning before. It just let it through. That doesn't work anymore. Those days are over, gone, forget it. And as hard as it is to say, at some point, you pay the price for staying on outdated versions. So that again is just reinforcing this point that I made in the very, very beginning. Upgrades are free. The more often and frequent you do, the less effort it will be, the less time it will take, and in the end, the less money you will burn doing this. And also, obviously, you stay on the newest version. everything that Gianni has said. You get it for free since it's included in your license. Why do you continue paying something that you're not using? That's pointless. It's like you rent you lease a car, and then the new car comes out, and what car companies don't do, but Oracle does, Oracle actually gives you the new car and just says, okay, keep paying your leasing rate and you get the new car. Whereas you're still sitting there in your old car saying, okay, I'm going to twist and fiddle with my car, and then people will complain that it doesn't have an air conditioner, it doesn't have the newest GPS, etc., etc. Well, the new car has it. You're just not changing to the new car. Think about it like this. Think about it like cars, not like software. So, starting point 11.119. Again, there's these two options: directly to OAS or through 12.214. And same thing, all the adaptation work is done in OAS, versus if you go through 12c, you actually have this safety net. And the cool thing is you can then create a perfectly configured, think about all the config files that there are, there's like 50 gazillion of them. You can tweak them before going to OAS. And then in the end, it would even allow you to just an in-place upgrade, not install a new environment, just say, okay, I'm changing the binaries and it's now OAS and no longer 12.214. But only after all the work and validation is done. So inside of the 12c family, there's actually a distinction that I mentioned in the beginning. Oh, and by the way, if you have questions, I see some questions popping up in the Q&A. Type them in. We'll cover them in the end. So the ones that I haven't covered yet. Yeah, so back to this. Yeah, inside of the 12c family. Inside of the 12c family, we have two behaviors. One is for basically the .0 release up to the .3 release, and one is for the .4. So if you're between .0 and .3, then it's an out-of-place upgrade. You need a second environment, and then you move things over with a bar file. In place, you can do it when you do a 12.214 in the middle. So this here is kind of, yeah, why should I? I'm already on 12c, and I agree. There weren't that many new checks that were implemented in 12.214. So you could say, well, I'll clean up everything important. Don't do the cleanup step. Not do the cleanup step. So I should actually put this into all the slides. Do cleanup, and then move forward. So you can do it if you want. It's not really necessary here. It's more necessary when you come from something that's not the 12c family. And we've been talking a lot about in place or upgrade, and especially with, let's go one back, especially with regards to this slide here, you know, what would be the difference inside of the family? So if I do option A out of place, option B in place, with an in-place upgrade, you keep the domain, you keep what you've installed, you keep the config folder, most importantly, and you just exchange the binaries and upgrade it. Now, out of place obviously means you have two machines, you have two environments, and you move things from A to B, which of course means, jumping ahead, which of course means you need to adjust the configuration as well again in the target. So for the advantages and disadvantages, I'm now going to hand over to Gianni, who will go more about in place, out of place, and then go further into detail. What do you do after your migration is done?
Okay, so the in-place upgrades do not give you the chance to do a few little things which are really important, mainly when you come from quite back in time. First of all, the OS. You need to keep updating your OS, just because if your OS is totally old and non-updated, not patched, you can have many issues. And also just saying, the certification, the certified system for Analytics server are not as old as the older OBIEE. They only work on current OS because it's a current product. So doing an out of place gives you the chance to upgrade everything else on the box. Everything else outside OBIEE, Oracle Analytics Server or OBIEE. You can also take this chance to, for example, move to a new hardware. Like there are CPU released every single year. They keep increasing the performance, lowering the cost. So after a few years, you can just rush your server, buy a new one. It will be more efficient, more powerful for the same price. So doing an out of place, just make it totally easier, because if you start installing your new server on the side, you just move over the content, you just redo the config, you're good to go on a new, nice, new shiny server. More importantly, you have two independent systems. You can get both of them working, except if they are on the same server using the same ports. That's a detail. But otherwise, you can easily spin up the old instance. You can spin up the new one and just start comparing left, right, left, right. You look through it and you just decide, okay, what makes sense, how and why? What is different, what does it work? And because of that, you can always say, okay, no, it's not working. There is a major issue somewhere else. Let's roll back everything. Let's stick to where we are. We need to do more preparation on those steps first. If you're doing an in-place upgrade, once the domain is upgraded, even if it doesn't work, it's too late. It's upgraded. If you don't have a full backup, it's too late. You cannot go back. So these are the benefits of an out-of-place upgrades. Obviously, the limits of it is, the downside is you need to repeat the configuration. For example, the security in WebLogic, the security pointing to your Active Directory, to your enterprise LDAP. This one has to be set up again. You need either an additional environment or a server that was big enough to have the two installs at the same time, the time that you fully migrate to the new one and then trash the old binaries and all the older folder. And one special point that I really want to make, because I keep seeing this one so many times, and it's, trust me, I don't say that for me, I say it for you. The folder structure matter. Sometimes people install tools keeping default values, default settings. Well, defaults often works, sometimes not. By default, if you install OBIEE and you don't read through the details, so you don't really go into details, mainly if you use the visual interface for the installation, the GUI, what you get on the end is a folder with the binaries, like in this case, it's OAS 55. This is the Oracle home. There inside, you have all the binaries, WebLogic, all those things. And you have another folder called user projects, and there inside you have the domains. Into the domains folder, you will have your own domain configuration. You have your real instance configuration. All your RPD, your catalog, all these things will be inside the domain. 1 year pass. Hey, let's do an in-place upgrade to OES 2021. No idea what the next number will be, so let's call it 2021. I mean, it's same family. Let's do an in-place upgrade. It will be easier. Sure, I install the new binaries. I upgrade my domain. I'm good to go. All I have to do is drop the old one. Oh yeah, I can't. Because my domain, which is now using the OES 2021 binaries, it's inside the older Oracle home. If I drop that one, I just trash my own instance. Sure, it's maybe not a problem next year. In 2 years' time, in 3 years' time, when you are not there and somebody else jump in, you say, oh, let's clean up the server because I see a bunch of old folders, old releases. Let's trash the old binaries. We don't need it anymore. Oops, you just trash your own server. If you look at the Fusion middleware infrastructure documentation, for the whole 11G and 12C family, there is this kind of diagram inside, this kind of pictures that show you the ideal structure of folder to create. They split the domain from the Oracle home. This is really a key point. So what if you are just creating things in this way? You create a config folder, then inside you put the domains. You create a product folder, and then inside you put the binaries. 1 year pass, in-place upgrade. Cool. I installed the new binaries. Now, can I trash the old one? Absolutely. After this in-place upgrade, your server looks like if you only ever installed 2021. 5.5 doesn't exist anymore anywhere. So the out-of-place upgrade allows you to fix folder issues. Trying to fix it once the system is up and running. We have some friends that try to do it. They really tried to do it. Spent 2 months on it. The system didn't boot anymore, and they couldn't fix it at all in the end. It will take you ages to try to change the folder structure once the full product is installed. Don't go there. Your time is worth more than that. Something that has been already said many times, but I want to repeat it. Before to upgrade it, try to clean up things. You maybe did changes. Do they still have to be there? Yes or no? Any old past things, do I really have to keep it? Get rid of it. It will just annoy you in the new system. You really need to start as clean as possible. And Christian already said it a few times, but let me repeat it. New standards. New products means new standards. Product evolve. If somebody gives you a new version of the tool, maybe there are new things inside. What's the point of making it work and keep it configured as the old one? Try to start as new as possible, as fresh as possible, because if you have a full set of config for improving how Flash was working in your 10G and 11G, well, as Christian said, Flash is not there anymore. You don't need all that piece of config anymore, because maybe now it still works. Next year, it will give you an error on the config file and your server will not boot and you will spend 1 day trying to figure out what's wrong. So try to clean up things up front. The sooner you clean up, the less you waste time after. Now up to the upgrade itself. Christian covered all the path to it, and he said you can use the migration tool when you come from 11.119, for example. What does the migration tool? Well, it's just a tool that just take it all. It packages the catalog, the RPD, it packages the security. You just have to run one command. You download the tool, you put it on the old server, you run one command. That's it. There is really no settings. It's a nice black box. We all love black boxes when they work. They never really work as expected by default. So what do you do if it doesn't go through? What do you do if you have an issue? Well, it's a black box. So by default, I would say by experience, what we saw around all these years, few elements that can be an issue to make this black box work can be just legacy configuration. As I said, if you didn't clean up your config files, for example, or if you didn't clean up all the things, if you didn't clean up your RPD, you can have something that just is not allowed anymore. Something that few people had, it was just characters. Like the tool has maybe been coded as with US or English in mind. There are accents, there are special characters. Sometimes special characters in few names, in some places even application roles, just crash the migration tools. You had an application role with an accent in the name. Well, migration tool, nope, sorry, me not speak this language. So it was not working at all. So if new tool exists, new standard exists, they exist for a reason. Don't try to take something new and make it work as something old. Please try to only take with you the necessary thing. Don't move useless thing. Clean up first, move less, move smarter, will be less time for you. And really, there are still settings even in Oracle NX Server to make it run like 11G. You can still tweak it with parameters to say, hey, please act as you are 11G. What's the point of upgrading if you do that? There is just no point. So don't do that, please. Invest enough time to just conform to the new standards and make it work as a new tool. If you need this tool, you go into the data visualization screen, you go into the snapshot part, migrate, download the tool, and then once you created the package, upload. Finger crossed, it will maybe work. If it does, that's it, what it takes. The bar file migration. So again, it will take up everything. It takes the RPD, it take up the catalog, it take up the security, but you can actually choose which element you want inside or not. You cannot choose sub part of the catalog. You say catalog, yes, no, RPD, yes, no, security, yes, no. So what do you do if it just doesn't go through? And you have a nice bar file, but you cannot import it. What do you do? Well, it's still a technically, theoretically, it's a black box. Technically, it's a bar file, so it's a file, so you are not supposed to, and don't do it, please. I never suggested you open the bar files and play inside. I never said that in my lab. Let's say that. But if you really need to maybe look into your bar file to try to fix this little thing that doesn't allow your bar file to be deployed, you can still open it, change the content, do the needed things to get it through. Don't do that, please. It's not suggested, not supported, but there are ways. There are ways. And as I said, you can really at least select what kind of content you want to bring over. You can just upgrade and import the RPD, or just the catalog, or just the security, or a combination, or a subset of the full bar, but not a subset of catalog. When you create a bar file using, for example, the snapshot screen, you see that you can take everything or just go into custom, and in custom you can pick the kind of content you want. But you cannot say, please take only this machine learning model, or please take only this subject area. It's just by content type. You take the full machine learning part, you take the full RPD, you take the full catalog. When you import it, again, you have the same kind of approach that allows you to import everything and replace everything. You trash the old one, you get the new one in place, finger crossed it worked, maybe not. Or you can just replace one given thing. For example, you are just migrating on a weekly basis or a daily basis your RPD, because you keep developing on the old system, so you need to keep your new one up to date. You keep importing the RPD, for example. You can do it. Now, what do you do when both of these options doesn't work? Or when you have a need which is different, when you need more an agile approach, something more dynamic? Well, manual way. This is not really in the documentation because it's not a one-click tool. So it's not there, but it's part of the tool and it fully works. And that's actually this manual approach is the same command that the bar and migration tool will actually use in the backend. If Oracle gives you the code of the bar import tool and the migration tool, because you're not allowed to look at the source code, you will see the commands that are used. It's manual commands. You can really go into every single detail. You can pick everything you want. You have really a fine-grained control. You can say, I really want to import this thing with these settings. And then you have also detailed logs. With the bar file and the migration tool, you have like a more a generic log. Sometimes it gives you the info of what's going wrong, sometimes not really. Here you're really at the lowest level possible. You get all the details, all the logs are detailed. So you can also just take really small pieces and test on a small part of your catalog, test on a small part of your system. And once you're done, you can then just make it larger scale, apply to the whole environment, or you can automate it. If you keep your old environment in parallel because you cannot stop development work, you can just automate it like a nightly migration of new changes. If you have a versioning control of those things, you can easily automate it to automatically upgrade and move things to your new server. The nicer thing is it works on all the versions from 10G till now, because the command line tools more or less are the same forever. They maybe just change some parameters, but they were there, they are there. They will still be there in a few years, probably. So once you did the upgrade, what else do you have to do? First of all, it has been said and repeated and repeated. I want to repeat it once more. You did the upgrade, cool. Open the RPD, do a consistency check. It's a new version. Mainly if you come from 11G, there are new rules. As Christian said, in 11G, no errors, no warnings. You open it in OAS, you get 5,000 errors. It can happen. You just took some artistic freedom in your 11G. You build a nicely inspired model in your RPD. It was not sticking to the rules. Now Oracle server start enforcing more rules. You just have to stick with it. So open your RPD, run the consistency check, clean up your RPD. If you clean it up now, yourself, you will thank you in 1 year time when you do the next upgrade. Or your colleague in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. The more you clean up first, it's a job you don't have to do tomorrow. But at least today, you know why you are cleaning up. While in 1 year time, you have no idea what you have, why you have these things there and where they come from. Something else, again, it has been said, but once you are on the new version, on the new tool, Try to get rid of workarounds, shortcuts, quick wins. They maybe were there because something was not working in the old version of the tool, but the new tool works differently. By default, it just works differently. So maybe your old issues are not there anymore. Why to keep a workaround when by default, the natural product will just work? Mainly if you migrate the configuration files, just try to get rid of things. For example, all the setting to export billions of rows in an Excel file. Because now in Oracle Next Server, you have data visualization, and you want maybe to push your users to load the small Excel file with attributes in DV to complete the enterprise dataset instead of exporting billions of rows. Try to just revert the settings as much as possible to default values, and then start reapplying workarounds and quick wins and shortcuts only if really needed. A really important point that many keep forgetting: new features. It also means new security rules, new settings. You have the full data visualization part. There are probably new privileges, new security policies. Are they part of your security model? And they are new, by default not. So review the new security rules, the new standards, and glob them into your own model. Make sure that your security model is still up to date with the new version of the tool that you're using. And most important, if you're really heavily working on inheritance and you use the default roles, for example, application roles, they can change from version to version. So just review them to make sure that your inheritance is still there and you don't have a big loophole that is just opening up your system to everyone that wants to crash it or whatever. An extra thing, because it's the same code base as cloud, in the cloud you cannot configure a file. You cannot open the NQS config.ini instance config.xml. So what Oracle did, they create a new console page to allow you to configure some elements. This console page is inside the DV. If in data visualization you open the console, you find the system settings. It has a bunch of configuration inside. Just make sure that what you have in your files, they are there as well, because this is the new way to set, let's say, attributes, to set settings in Oracle Next Server. It's inherited from the cloud. So if you just have a setting in your file, it's maybe overwritten by your console page, and your setting is not applying. This is, for example, this is where you find the console page. You can see there are things like allow HTML content, false. You can set all the permission to allow HTML as much as you want. If you don't go inside this page to turn this one on, it will just not work. So please review the new console page settings. Make sure they are in sync with your own settings, and be sure to be aware of everything you find there inside, because it's a console page for something. So that's where you can set things. Be aware of what you find there inside. Last but not least, backups, restore. You maybe had a good backup and restore process. You maybe, many don't, but details. You maybe had a good process in your 11G or 12C. It's a new tool. Maybe backups work in a different way. Maybe restore work in a different way. So take the time to review your backup process. And once you did a good backup, please try a restore somewhere. Never forget, backup without being able to restore it means no backup. So try it. And just a little hint, you maybe know the BI platform schema in the database. In 11G and 12C, it was just for user tracking, agents log, agents scheduler, that's it. It was not much important. Guess what? Oracle Next Server has few more things there inside. This schema is all of a sudden extremely important. Maybe it contains data flows, maybe it contains data sets, maybe it contains the full catalog. So does it make sense to consider it for backup and restore as well? Is it maybe something to start thinking about? How is your backup and restore process? Do you maybe want to ask your DBA to set up backups and restore procedures for your BI platform schemas? That's up to you. Just keep in mind, new tool, new ways of doing things, new backup and restore process to just validate and improve if needed. And with all that, we could keep going for hours, but at least we give you a full overview of everything. It's now time for a question on your side. I guess I already saw Christian answering question all around.
Yes, I've in the interest of time, I've pre-answered some questions that I'm just going to quickly read out to the public so that everybody knows what we were talking about behind the scenes. So one question was when there is the next release for Oracle Analytics Server with new OAC features. So this maybe was a misunderstanding based on what we said. So Oracle Analytics Server, the on-premises version 5.5 is out since the beginning of this year, and we will get the Windows version soon, which is 5.5.1 basically. The next one, which you may call 5.6 or 6.1 or however it's going to be called, that will be next year. There's no official timeline yet, but that will basically be what Gianni called the 2021 version of Oracle Analytics Server.
So yeah, the rule is really it's a once per year new feature. So we got it end of January. We're not going any new features for at least 12 months probably. That's the idea.
Yeah, so if everything goes well, we should have a new, at least Linux release beginning of next year. That's fingers crossed, that's what we hope for. Then one question was about which base version there is for upgrading to OAS. I think we covered this all. And another question was kind of unrelated, but I'm going to read it out. So if I use RPD and session variables and RPD physical layer views, so SQL queries using session variables, the user interface needs to allow users to select and set variables. So this was maybe some confusion because there is a plugin out there on the analytics library that's called variable prompt, which allows you to set a variable or use a variable in data visualization. Now, everything that used to work in OBIEE still works. There's no change whatsoever. So all the tricks you used to pull with variables in the prompt and then pushing it into a view or pushing it into like dynamically changing the whole database you connect to, that's still there. Don't worry. You don't have to reinvent the wheel or I don't know, write code or so. That's all still there. Now, for the new questions that have come in,
I just saw one popping up because I just took the Windows on the fly. So one question is, do we need to convert OBIEE classic dashboards to data visualization? You don't. The classic screen, so answers, is still there. Oracle Analytics Server still has it. The DV part, it's more like it's a different targeting of people. Look, it's more of these. Let's target self-service. Let's target business users or power end users that want to build up things. Then if you have a nice DV project that you want to share inside a classic dashboard, you can actually insert it into your classic dashboard and it will show up like if it's an analysis, but you don't have to convert anything. You get all these classical things still there.
So just in case you want to see this, Garrett, I'm just quickly gonna, oops, I cannot. Can I just share the screen, Gianni, please?
You are going to break it.
I'm not going to break it. So where's my, okay, this is Inception now, screen and screen. So as you can see here, this is one of my Oracle Analytics Server instances running on the Oracle Cloud. So this is just on pure metal OCI. And here you have Oracle Analytics data visualization in OAS 5.5. Now, the same thing, the same URL, just with analytics, still gives you, and here you can also already see the new and feel. This is analytics, old school answers and dashboards in OAS. And then third, and this is, oops, there was a new one, cool. This is Oracle Analytics Desktop. So all these three tools, you can see that these two quite resemble each other. Well, it's DV, one's on the desktop, one's on the server, but it's all the same thing. It's all the same code base. It's all the same version. it all works together. So we had this question from, stop screening here. We had this question also from Petra. You know, do we need to refactor something? And she asked, how does this work in the RPD with relation to data visualization, data flows, etc., etc.? What's the best way to set this up or adjust this? If you have an RPD, no need to change anything. DV can leverage whatever you have in the RPD and then add everything more. And that's what's cool about data visualization. Data visualization, you can upload stuff from an Excel sheet. You can connect it to a Google Drive. You can connect it to, I don't know, Salesforce if you want to. But at the same time, it still uses everything that was there before. It just builds on it, and it allows you to mesh things up and combine them and so on. And that's the cool thing that I said in the very, very beginning. No need to reinvent the wheel. You do not need multiple tools. It's just different ways of looking at, first of all, the same data, the curated one, and then adding new bits onto it. You don't need to have somebody like writing Python for you. You don't have to have somebody that says, oh yeah, every day I'm going to export 5 million rows to Excel and do 50 like nested pivots on it. We have one here. Can BIP reports be upgraded to OAS without change? Yes, because BIP is also part of OAS. BIP is even part of OAC. So Oracle in this cloud, you can even do it there. So if you take a bar file and you push it to the cloud, it will work. If you take one from the cloud and you push it down, it will work. If you take one from OBIEE and you put it into OAS, it will work.
I will just add that without changes, I would say it depends. If you come from 11G, BI Publisher 12 being a new release, maybe you have few details to adjust. It's just the same as everything else. Depending on how far you were from Oracle Server on your source,
from the standard.
you maybe have something to adapt, but globally, BI Publisher objects are just part of the system.
Yeah.
And there is a question that I really like, and I guess with Christian we will have fun answering. Why is Actas another user being deprecated and disabled by default? I don't work for Oracle. Christian doesn't work for Oracle. We don't have the official answers. The theory is it's a alignment of code base. Oracle Server took all the nice fancy things from the cloud. Obviously, in the cloud, Actas doesn't exist because you have the full ITCS and security model on top. It just cloud doesn't like Actas. It cannot be done as such. So this is why by default, Oracle say, hey, these things were deprecated. It's still there. You can still enable it. You can still use it. But we are trying to work on something that will actually replace it at some point in the future. That's really the key aspect. It's deprecated, not supported and not removed from the tool. It's just a warning saying, keep an eye out for new releases because maybe we will tell you something interesting about this point. They are working on something. It will come at some point.
So that's the reason why we mentioned check the deprecation list. Everything that's disabled at the moment can be re-enabled and will work as before. So BI SQL group providers, act as, etc., etc. Just bear this in mind. I had a kind of a meltdown when this came out because obviously the deprecation list was literally the features list I was working on at a huge client at that time. So I was kind of like, not cool. But this is all still going to exist going forward. It's just going to be replaced with somebody else. Then just in terms of time, I'm conscious about time. I'm sorry that we run over, but there's more and more questions coming in now. I'm quickly going to do 2 or 3, and then we're going to wrap this up. If you still have questions, contact us. You can shoot us an email, Twitter. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on Telegram. I think I have the link in the very beginning of the slides. We're running an analytics channel as well. So come in. There's like ACEs and ACE directors all over the place, and we have nothing better to do than answer your questions. Then Eloy asks, do we have the link to documentation of command line tool? So that's a question for the manual migration using the command lines. So the command lines, it was in one of the very first slides. Those are literally the same that were written in the 1990s. It's the runcat for the web catalog, and it's, well, actually several ones for the BI server, legacy ones and new ones from Oracle. And you can basically run any command you want and just in a command window and just type help or -help, depending on which one of the two you use. And then you get a documentation and a detailed documentation of every single command in there. Yes, it's tedious to go through, but that's how command line stuff works. I can't give you the code that we were talking about, but this is code that I've developed for use in projects. And since we're being honest with each other here, of the about 10 or 12 11G to 12C releases that I've done, I think 3 have used the standard approach, and everything else I've done manually through the command line because I've automated and scripted it. So it's proven code. It just uses what Oracle has since quite literally decades, and that's it. So Gianni, could you just look at the last ones? I'm just quickly gonna write an answer here.
So yeah, there is a question which is how can we estimate the server utilization, like CPU, before and after migration? I say before, look at your system, it's up and running, so there's nothing better than the live system to see how much power it uses. Now, if you come from a 12C, expect Oracle Analytics server to just be in line. In the end, it's the same tool, it's just like a cousin. It's why it's also called the 12.2.1.5 sometimes in the support notes. So from a 12C to Oracle Analytics server, let's say that it's probably just 1-to-1 as power server utilization. Obviously, if you open up to 10,000 users to use data visualization, which was not used at all in 12C, you have an extra load because you're adding something new. There are not really metrics that are published by Oracle to guess these things. It's really, there are old metrics, I guess, in the 11G documentation and early 12C that say, oh, if you have this amount of users, you need this amount of CPU, this amount of RAM. So take your current usage on your system. If you add new features, if you open up data visualization to new people, consider maybe adding something more, but it will not be a huge step up in terms of server utilization. If you come from 11G, again, I will say it's quite in line. There is not a huge overall. It doesn't really require a lot more than the previous one because the core elements, they are just still there. The 12C family just needed a bit more memory, at least that's what I see when I start my sandboxes. It takes a bit more memory. It's a bit slower in starting, so it will definitely enjoy some faster CPU on that side, but it's just because it's doing many more things. There is many more security protocols enforced between components, so it just takes more things to encrypt and create the keys and all those things. So, but the CPU usage itself, let's say it's quite similar from 11G to OAS or 12C to OAS.
It's honestly, it's really negligible. It's really small.
Negligible.
And,
negligible.
Yeah, negligible. Yeah, that's what I was trying to build up. And as Gianni said, honestly, you should be more worried about memory and not processor. Yeah. It's memory. It's random number generation. It's things like that. But in 9 cases out of 10, you don't even need to tweak that.
There is maybe one detail that I'm just thinking about. If you are going to use...
Guys, I'm very conscious of time. We've now run to 90 minutes. Yeah. Can I suggest we make it a wrap there? And if people have got further questions, then please contact these guys. Yes. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm sorry to cut it short.
Yeah.
And yeah, please do reach out to both Christian and Gianni. It's been a fantastic session. We've still got lots of questions coming in. Please direct them directly to these guys, and we will try and answer them all. I'm just very conscious we're gradually losing people now. So no, thank you very much, guys. It's been a fantastic session. Really, really good.
Yeah.
Take care.